Um, yes, I got this. How about that? Fix the echo for you?
Echo is perfect now.
Good, good. All right, man. We're back up and rolling. Let you introduce yourself. Nico, how are you doing, man? Welcome to the show. Sorry about the hiccups, folks.
Oh, good, man. Hey, everyone. I'm Nico Moran. I'm a Bitcoiner, and I love making content. Started a channel which became a media company in 2020 called Simply Bitcoin, and happy to be here, man.
Man, so walk me through that. You said you started the company in 2020. Let's go back a little bit before the start of the company. When was the first time you got into Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'm class of 2016. Um, I was, I would say, like kind of like a low point in my life, and I kind of didn't like my situation, and I really liked the industry, and it was kind of like full of opportunity and the volatility, and just I felt like it was a way out to the situation that I was in. So it goes back to that saying, right? You come for the money, you stay for the revolution, and you know I got lucky in that sense because I think Bitcoin's incentives attracted me to it. But once you take the orange pill, there is no end to the rabbit hole. So you start asking very important questions like, what is money? You know,
Mhm.
what is like, what is this? What should the actual relationship between the state and the individual be? Um, why is there inflation? Does money need to lose purchasing power in order to exist, in order to function? I think those are just very important questions, but I think there needs to be an incentive, like a reason as to why people ask those questions, because it's very difficult questions for people to ask. And I think Bitcoin provides those incentives. With number go up, it provides it with better money. And when you're holding a better money, you start to ask questions about the previous money that you were using, right? Which is the dollar, of course. So, yeah, man, it's been a long ride. You know, at a worked at a Bitcoin company. That was a great experience. And, back to being independent and kind of focusing on my media company and Simply Bitcoin. And, we're blessed to have started this thing in previous kind of bull market. So we laid the foundations over the last couple of years. And I think we're finally starting to, benefit from that after many, many years of hard work.
You had said that you were in a bad point in your life in 2016, and that kind of led you to Bitcoin. Can you walk me through that? Can you tell us a little bit about what situation you were in? And you don't have to be exact details if it's personal, but I want our audience to understand because I was similar, how I got into Bitcoin as well. So I kind of want to hear a little bit more about that point and what was it, what was going on in your life, and then what kind of drove you to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just I think it was just like, I just didn't like my living situation. And I had like a minimum wage job. I was
Hmm.
living on my friend's couch in downtown Miami, and he was nice enough to kind of lend me his apartment and subsidize it in a way. Um and yeah, that was kind of like that desperate moment in time looking back, uh what a journey it's been, what a ride it's been. But yeah, like again, like you need that incentive to find Bitcoin. And
Hmm.
I was young enough at the time. I think it was like 23 or 24 years old. Um, and you're in a shitty situation. You want that situation to change, and that's when you start asking questions.
So can you walk me through you're at a point in your life, 2016, you're obviously dead broke, right? You're wanting to change your situation, you're working a minimum wage job. How did that transition into you finding Bitcoin and then going, okay, there's this beautiful asset, but I need more money. I'm going to work
Yeah, it's
harder to get more money. Can you walk us through that part?
yeah, it's a great question. So, yeah, basically, I had a cousin who, so I'm originally from Venezuela, and I had a cousin visit me from Venezuela, and we were hanging out, and I asked him like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And It's like I have these like magic internet machines and they just print me money. And that's led me to start asking questions about Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? What do you mean you're mining? Like, what do you mean they're printing your magic internet machines? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And my uncle, my cousin's father, was actually mining Bitcoin in Venezuela at the time, and it was kind of an interesting point in Venezuela's history because once again it was like entering this like hyperinflationary kind of
Mhm.
stage. So what that does is it creates two exchange rates for the currency, like the official state exchange rate and the black market rate, which is the actual market rate, which is
Mhm.
the rate that everyone pays, which is significantly lower than the official exchange rate. So it created a situation where because electricity prices were priced at the official exchange rate and not the actual black market rate or the market rate, it created a situation where you were mining for like you were mining for free essentially. And then, that was awesome for 2016, 2017.
Mhm.
But then a lot of my what essentially started happening is that the security on the ground started to change. So people started to figure out that one S9, which was like the Bitcoin mining ASIC of the time,
Mhm. I remember this.
would make you more money than a government salary, right? So people started to steal the machines, the government started to seize them. Like it got hairy really fast. So my uncle kind of had to shut down what he was doing, and I was the only American citizen of the group, so I was able to move some of his clients to the US, and that kind of started my entrepreneurial journey, and that kind of started my Bitcoin journey into all this. Then 2018 hit and that bear market kind of crashed anyone who was mining. People that
Mhm.
survived ended up thriving, but I
Mhm.
had to go back to fiat mining. And I went back to work in commercial real estate. I did that for a couple of years. I never got sick of the industry. I wanted to be a part of it somehow. And then that's kind of like how I ran into content creation and I absolutely fell in love with it.
Mhm.
Then that's when I started Simply Bitcoin. I have always loved YouTube and I've always enjoyed making kind of YouTube content. But at the time I was like old enough, like I was like, okay, if I was like 15, maybe I would have started like a video game channel or something, but I wasn't. So I was like, okay, by the time this would succeed, this starts to pick up steam, I'm going to be 31, 32 years old. Do I really
Mhm.
want to be that age talking about video games? Or, do I want to do like at the time there was no Bitcoin only content. Bitcoin only content was in its infancy. So I said, okay, let me start a Bitcoin only channel. And I was lucky enough to get invited to Bitcoin 2021, which was like, the first major Bitcoin conference in Miami.
Mhm.
And I ended up getting invited on a panel on the main stage. That was the conference that Naim Bukele made his announcement of Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador. That's when like Max Kaiser and Sailor like, kind of like hugged each other out on stage. It was that conference. So it was like kind of a big deal. And that was like the first time I got to pitch an audience. That was like my first foray into, conferences and speaking. After that,
Mhm.
I've done many, but that was a hell of an experience and my heart was racing, I was kind of nervous. But yeah, I got to pitch the audience on Simply Bitcoin. The audience kind of resonated with it. And then, my channel started to grow. And around, I think it was late 2023, I had a good relationship with Corey Clipston, the CEO and founder of Swan.
Mhm.
And he offered me a job. And I think the first time I turned him down. And then the second time I was in the bear market and I was like, okay. So I joined Swan Bitcoin for about a year. I built their basically their content strategy over on their YouTube, and I started to build their news aggregator Twitter. So I did that for about a year, and then early this year, about in January, I was just like, okay, it's time to be independent again. I don't
Mhm.
think I was meant to kind of work in a corporation, but it was a great experience, and I wanted to experience it. So, kind of went independent again with Simply Bitcoin and it's been great so far. I've been absolutely loving it. So yeah, man, it's just been a long and tumultuous journey. navigating the Bitcoin industry in the Bitcoin space and, trying to build a business at the same time. At first it started as a hobby, as like this small kind of YouTube. I still think it's small, but this YouTube channel, and then and then you start getting sponsors and partners, and you're like, holy crap, someone will pay me for this.
Yeah.
And then it kind of transitions to a small little media startup, and it's off to the races from there. So, yeah, man, it's been a tremendous amount of fun, and it's crazy all these experiences, over these last couple of years, man. It's been a lot of fun for sure.
It sounds to me you're almost like the definition of the American dream. You're literally living it, and I think that this is the last generation that'll even have the ability to have a taste of it if we continue on the route that we're going with the money printing and inflation and just the crushing of the middle class. We had kind of talked about that a little bit before, but I mean, your parents came over here from Venezuela as immigrants. They raised you. You at one point had absolutely nothing. Were living on a friend's couch and nothing more than a work ethic and determination. And you've completely, forged your path in America. And you seem like you're now on track to become very, very successful. And I mean, that's a pretty impressive story, my friend. I just wanted to say that it's really impressive. Most people won't.
Oh,
What was your motivation? I guess, when most people just give up or they want to live off government assistance and look for handouts, it didn't seem like you chose that route. What was the motivation that you, or your drive? What motivated you to continue to push forward when you were just keep getting knocked down and knocked down and knocked down?
yeah, I think unless you want to take a job, which I don't think is bad or anything, but if you're trying to build something, the universe is just gonna basically push back, and every time it pushes back, I just the way I frame it in my head is it's basically asking you like, how much do you want this? And if you persevere and you're able to kind of power through and overcome, uh, greatness awaits. And I think most people kind of don't understand how far you can go if you just put your head down and work through the uncertainty, because that's really what it is. Um, but to answer your question, I think you got to love what you do, because if you don't love what you do, there's going to be days where you don't want to do what you have to do, and because you don't love it, you don't do it. So I love making content. I've been asked times like, what are you going to like, been a Bitcoiner for 8 years, you're going to retire. And I said, man, I'm going to make content till the day I die because I love to do it.
Yeah.
And I think every human being, like, you need a purpose, you need a reason to get up in the morning. And
Hmm.
my reason is I like making content. I like my live stream. I like kind of getting the message out there, and I love my audience, and I love my partners, and the people that kind of believed in Simply Bitcoin and supported the show and supported the vision and all that. So yeah, just like, how bad do you want it? Keep chugging along. Don't give up. I mean, I think it sounds very cliche, but it's
Yeah.
it's extremely true. Just like literally, just power through. And it's like a game of like perseverance, because like most people, like, you'd be surprised. I don't know if I said this, but I don't think I've ever met like an entrepreneur that hasn't eventually gotten or become successful. So what do I mean by that? They could fail at like 100 ideas, but you only need one to work,
Yeah.
and you have a lot of shots on goal,
Hmm.
right? So, yeah, I just happen to be a masochist and kind of stick to, what I love to do. I think it's just content creation. But yeah, like, if you have a dream, just keep chipping at it, and then like I said, like, eventually this thing's going to work out for you. I don't know if it's going to take 5 years
Hmm.
or 12 years, but eventually you're going to have some type of success. I really believe that. Like I said, like, I don't think I've ever met someone who like really believed, and that hasn't really broken through.
I agree. I agree. And tell us a little bit about Simply Bitcoin. Is this something you're just doing by yourself? I see some other people in your videos. Tell us a little bit about what is Simply Bitcoin.
Yeah, so we're about 12 people. We're about 4 people full time. And it's a small media company. We focus on the separation of money and state and the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. So we basically give you the news from the Bitcoin lens, and that's essentially it. That's what we do.
And you have somebody on your team. I believe I was watching his video. I think I played it on my show the other night. Really high energy. Am I saying that
Rustin,
right? Who?
Rustin, that's Rustin.
Rustin. Very, very high energy. Absolutely loved it. And I'm really big into content. I was sending you some of my stuff before. I mean, this is like my fourth channel, and obviously I keep getting demonetized from my political standpoints, but hopefully that won't happen on this next one because I'm going to stick just to crypto. But like you said, you love content. I'm a huge fan of it. The way that that last video I watched was edited, the way that the scenes were cut, the transitions, every single aspect about that video was an absolute banger. And I knew that I just watched that first video and I was like, wow, these guys get it. They understand how content works. They understand how to edit. Whoever's on your editing team and producing those videos, I just want to give a big shout out to them because they're absolutely crushing it. And a huge fan of you guys' work, man. Again, you guys, if you guys aren't following this gentleman right here, Simply Bitcoin, they have a YouTube channel and they have a Twitter over there. They're constantly putting out amazing videos on Twitter. We're actually going to get into one of those videos here in a second. So if you guys are, again, trying to follow Bitcoin or stay up to the most up to date with the best news from a trusted, reliable source, this is going to be your go-to channel. So again, swing down there and hit those subscribe buttons. But yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about your team and the editing aspect? Is this something that people have came to you and are like, hey, I'd like to be an editor for you. Here's my work. And they brought you on, or are these people that you bring on from scratch and are like, hey, here's how I make content. I would like you to edit content this way.
Yeah, so I mean, took me a couple years to kind of discover the formula, and then I I scout all the time. So I look for people that are Bitcoiners, they're hungry, and there's a ridiculous amount of people that want to be involved in Bitcoin. They want to be a part of the revolution. They want to be a part of what's going on. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes I get approached. Sometimes I find someone, I like their work, I approach them. Um, I give them a rifle, I show them the hill, and the people that make it to the top of the hill with the least amount of instructions kind of stay with the team. The ones that don't just kind of fizzle out.
Yep.
And we have an amazing group of editors. I think it's 2 or 3 of them now. It's 2. And they're really good. But I think you're talking about John's work, and John is incredibly talented. And yeah, we're very lucky to have him.
Wow, man. This is such a cool story. So 12 people, man. What's all going on at Simply Bitcoin? Can you give us a little background on where these 12 people fit in, how they fit into the bigger picture of your project, and where you guys are, what direction you're headed with it?
Yeah, I mean, we make the most amount of content out of any other Bitcoin company. And we like to see ourselves as kind of like a content machine. So we're just pumping out, as much as we can. And it requires a lot of people, believe it or not. We have a pretty crazy content schedule. We post a live stream 5 days a week. We post original content, which is the video that you're referring to, 3 days a week. And then we post vertical content about 7 days a week, sometimes 14 times a week, depending on what our resources are. And of course, we have a news aggregator on Twitter. So a lot of those tweets that you're referring to were just kind of breaking news and all that stuff. And we try to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on in Bitcoin, and being able to report it promptly to the masses and who's ever following along.
Tell me a little bit about that news aggregator. How does that work? What is a news aggregator for people that are listening and might not understand what that is?
Yeah, it's just you follow a single source, right? And they break the news for you, right? So, the latest breaking news, we try to break it. So if you follow our Twitter account, you'll see the latest kind of Bitcoin news that's happening in the space, and we try to get it to you as quickly as possible.
Perfect. I guess that's a great segue. Let me read this tweet from you guys. So it says, hot. Greg Foss explains why Ray Dalio doesn't tell the truth about hashtag Bitcoin being the solution to the fiat Ponzi. I want this system to succeed because I believe it will ensure the continuity of the freedom of the United States of America for the generations of my children and our grandchildren. Greg Foss. And I want to play this clip and I want to get your commentary on it.
So I'm not blaming Mr. Dalio for not embracing Bitcoin over the history of his hedge fund. What I am blaming Mr. Dalio for is not coming out and saying that Bitcoin is the solution to the Ponzi that he made all his money on between 1990 and 2020. He knows the answer. He wrote a book on it. But there's certain people that are pulling his strings that say, well, Ray, come on. The fiat system is your lifeblood. You can't stab us in the heart after you've made a career on the fiat system. And perhaps that's sinking in. I'm just voicing my opinion that if he had a backbone, he would tell the truth. And I guess maybe as a naive Canadian, I would assume that there's a lot of people up here in Canada that would actually tell the truth. I would hope that there's that many in the United States that would tell the truth. I don't know if a lot of them live on Wall Street, but there's guys like Larry Lepard, who lives in Boston, that would tell the truth. Okay, so man, oh man, this is not easy for me to say this because I was in a somewhat similar position to Mr. Dalio. I never was nearly as successful as he was, but I did okay. I'm trying to make amends. I want this system to succeed because I believe it will ensure the continuity of the freedom of the United States for the generations of my children and my grandchildren. I don't hear him talking that way that often. He's looking in the rearview mirror. I prefer to look out the windshield and try and plan for a future for my kids. Jeff Booth is exactly the same way. Okay, we're trying to design a system that is beneficial regardless of class, the Cantillon effect, whatever you want to call it. It allows everybody in the world an equal shot at a store of value that is colorblind. It's, it is beautiful. It's agnostic to some of the real problems that we have in our social society right now. So it's not easy, Nico. You know it, right? I mean, I'm just very happy to be part of this community that's a bunch of do-gooders, okay? We're doing good by doing well. And Wall Street's not like that at all. I've worked on Wall Street for 30 years of my life. Wall Street is 99% takers. The Bitcoin community is 85% givers. That's a diametrically opposed community. I'm going with the givers, okay? I want the givers to win because hope over evil. I want people to be given a fair shot regardless of where they started their lives. You don't have to be a silver spooner to succeed. You can succeed at the bottom of the privilege level, and that's an efficient market. And Bitcoin is my best measuring stick on an efficient market like that, a fair market. Thank you for that. I'm trying to speak the truth. Again, I have 3 kids, people. Like, I'm fine. I don't need people to, I've done what I need to do, but I need to do this for my children. I need to do it for your children. I need to, the selfish Wall Street fucks that are doing it for themselves, I need to call them out and start thinking about the children. For the kids, that's my tagline.
Wow. That was great, man. So tell me a little bit about that. Was an interview that you guys, I heard him say Nico in there. So obviously, was that an interview that you were doing yourself and then your team chopped that up and put that out just a minute ago?
Yeah. I think that's from a Simply Bitcoin IRL that I did with him. Foss has been kind of off the radar for a couple months now. I hope he's okay. I think he's doing good. And yeah, that was just from a video from a while back, and yeah, our team just posted it on our Twitter account and stuff. So,
man, that Greg Foss is I'm a huge fan of him. I was actually talking to him right when he made his first post. He was like disappeared, like you said, on hiatus for a while, and he made a post. I commented to him. I reached out to him. He's like, yeah, I'll come on for an interview, and then I just haven't really heard back from him. But I would love to interview that man, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. He's out here fighting for basically freedom and for the future of our children. And I feel like you're doing the same thing. Can you tell us a little bit about how this Bitcoin cycle has evolved so far? We're seeing the ETFs. Obviously, you've been nose to the grindstone, only Bitcoin content, so you're focusing on all the time. Give us a big picture about every bull run. They always tell us this one's going to be different. This one's going to be different. This one's going to be different. I was mining Ethereum back when it was like $2.64. I was one of the first people putting out how to mine Ethereum videos. And every bull run, they tell us it's different. But personally, this one does feel different. So I'd like to get your opinion on, does this cycle feel different to you? And what are you expecting over the next couple months? And then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I think it's going to absolutely rip. And the differentiating factor is the ETFs. So, the ETFs kind of provided legitimacy in the eyes of Wall Street, in the eyes of kind of institutional investors. And they didn't really have a vehicle to do that with until the ETFs. So what I think you should be seeing in the next couple months or so is, and you're already seeing this, I mean, the fact that you have the BlackRock ETF and the Fidelity ETF, and they're already in the top 5 out of 3,100 ETFs, and it's only been a couple months, I think is a testament to the power of Bitcoin's incentives. Now, to put the cherry on top, we have the halving in a month, right? So that sell pressure is going to get cut in half on top of what's already happening now. And I think it's going to create this explosive type of supply shock movement upwards violently. And I think we're going to see that in the next couple months. And I think the next year and a half, year, 2 years is going to be absolutely mind blowing for any Bitcoin hodlers. And, this is kind of vindication and it's kind of reward, and it's following the cycles, man. 3 green up years and 1 red year, so this is going to be my third bull third bull market. And this was my second bear, I think. Is it? I think it was my third. But this is kind of just Bitcoin doing what Bitcoin does. And, here we are around the corner from another bull market, ready to kind of rip it on to the next stage. So, it's incredibly exciting for sure.
When we take a look at those ETFs, what is your opinion? I've had a lot of people asking me about proof of reserves. We've seen FTX, and what FTX, in my personal opinion, was backed by the CIA. I don't think Sam Bankman-Fried could do any of that by himself without the help of the government. My personal opinion that they were trying to get enough liquidity for Sam Bankman-Fried to basically control the markets and be able to take your Bitcoin and sell it off on other exchanges and basically control, manipulate price. All because we didn't have things like proof of reserves. Then we seen Binance come out and kind of showed proof of reserves and a few other exchanges. What is your opinion around these ETFs? Are they showing proof of reserves? Are some of them, I heard Bitwise was. What's your opinion on these ETFs, because they passed the rule in Congress that stated that they don't actually have to own Bitcoin. As long as they have the fiat dollar equivalent in their accounts, they can sell you Bitcoin ETFs but not own Bitcoin. Am I saying that right?
I'm not familiar with that law, but what I will tell you is not your keys, not your cheese. So the ETFs are captured Bitcoin. It's just one 6E102 order away from being confiscated by the United States government. So the way that you protect yourself from that is by having your Bitcoin in self-custody. So that's what we advocate for. Self-custody is the revolution. And, I think the ETFs are a convenient way for investors to get exposure to Bitcoin. However, the downside is you're going to pay a price for that convenience. And that price is, it's not really your Bitcoin. You're really trusting a custodian, and you're really trusting the government to not rug pull you, so to speak. So
Mhm.
I would just advise to owning the real thing. And,
Yep.
the way that you do that is just buying spot Bitcoin and then taking that Bitcoin into self custody.
Do you think that there's a way that I heard a lot of these ETFs are custodian their Bitcoin with Coinbase? Now, I think I watched a video earlier that said that Coinbase is owning like 90% of spot traded Bitcoin, if I'm not mistaken. Does this become another Sam Bankman-Fried issue where Coinbase has so much of our Bitcoin or other people's Bitcoin on their exchange that they could be manipulating the market or price, or is that something that doesn't even bother you whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, do I think Coinbase manipulated? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very big coincidence that every time the price of Bitcoin runs up, Coinbase goes down, right? It's almost
Hmm.
as if it's like the U.S. government's kind of,
Yeah,
like their, I forget what the actual wording is called.
the kill switch.
Circuit breaker, yeah, kill switch. Um, so I don't know. I wouldn't put it past them. I think it's a little bit different to FTX because FTX was based overseas.
Mhm.
Coinbase is a publicly traded company in the United States, and they have to kind of adhere to all the regulations that come with that. Now, that's not to say a public company in the past hasn't done evil. It's just there's the level of scrutiny compared to FTX is tremendously higher. And also, they're a custodian for some of the most powerful asset managers in the world. So, these aren't stupid people. These are people that do their due diligence and they kind of look into it. Now, in a perfect world, I would prefer, these asset managers and institutions holding their own keys.
Mhm.
Um, I had Caitlin Long on my show, I think a couple months ago, and it was with Larry Lepard and Caitlin Long, and they were talking about the potential dangers of rehypothecation with these ETFs, which is what I think you're referring to. And it could be there. Some ETFs chose to made their address public, so you can kind of see their balance and it's not moving. Um, and I don't know if the other ones are going to follow suit, but yeah, I mean it's a brave new world for sure. And what I would say is not your keys, not your cheese.
Very well said. Do you think there's going to come a point where people like us have a big enough voice that we can basically advocate and convince people like, hey, if the ETFs aren't showing proof of reserves, if their wallet's not public, let's stop giving them our money and the ability to potentially not own Bitcoin and own a bunch of fiat dollars?
I mean, I do it every day, dude. I tell everyone to take custody every single
You,
day. So,
yeah,
I don't know, my account it's not the biggest, but I it's one of the things that I beat the battle drum on every single day is, self custody is revolution, take self custody. I think we got a comment today basically saying like, guys, you've been telling me to take self custody. I haven't listened for the longest time, but today I listened. So,
good job,
there's
man.
something about repetition, hammering the point home. Yeah, I mean, self custody, I think, is very intimidating for some people, especially if you've been coming from the fiat matrix and you've been outsourcing the custody of your wealth to a bank.
Mhm.
And I think the idea of, writing down 12 words and then safe keeping those 12, 24 words, and those 12, 24 words are, access to your money is a extremely radical idea if you've
Mhm.
been used to operating in a kind of different type of mindset.
How do you recommend people hold their Bitcoin? You say self custody. For people that don't understand, it's where you take full possession of your Bitcoin. You create your own wallet. You are in control with the only quote unquote, I guess, password is the easiest way to explain it to somebody who's new to Bitcoin. And you are the only one that has that password. So if you lose it, there's no calling a 1-800 number to get it back. Your wealth is gone. So it's very important for people to understand that. What is the best wallets and systems for somebody that's very new? Everything's above their head. What would be the easiest way for them to self custody their Bitcoin?
Might be a little bit biased here, but I would definitely recommend one of our sponsors, which is
Do it.
Passport by Foundation Devices.
You got a promo
It's a
code for that?
just go to passport.xyz and use promo code simply.
go.
You'll get you'll get about 3 months off VPN, and you'll be able to get yourself the hardware wallet. But it's completely open source. It's incredibly easy to use, and it's a good kind of stepping stone. And also for pros, also the device is for everyone, but it's really awesome for people that are just getting exposure to self custody in the beginning. This device makes it incredibly easy, incredibly as convenient as possible, I would say, while still maintaining security and sovereignty.
And you said hardware wallet. There's two types, correct? We have a cold storage wallet and then we have a hardware wallet. Are those the only two that you operate with?
Yeah, I think you're referring to as a hot wallet and a cold wallet, and basically the difference between the two is that a cold storage wallet is just a very fancy way of saying a wallet that is air gapped, so it's not connected to the internet. It's just the device is never connected to the internet, and because it's never connected to the internet, therefore your password, like you said, or your keys are never exposed to the internet. A hot wallet is something like having a Bitcoin wallet on your phone and the keys are on your phone. Yeah, I mean, most likely your Bitcoin's going to be fine, but I don't recommend holding a large amount of value on a hot wallet, because anything that is exposed to the internet is also exposed to hacks. It's also exposed to kind of malicious code. So, ideally you'd want your Bitcoin stack, the majority of it, in a cold storage wallet that is isolated from the internet.
And when you say hardware wallet, that is a wallet that is like a phone or a device or a computer that has a Bitcoin wallet installed on it. And when you power it on, okay, yeah, go
This
ahead,
is
walk
it
us
right
through
here.
this.
So this is the passport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like a phone, but it's not. It's just it has something called a secure element.
Yep.
And it has some security, and you put in your password, you put in your PIN. That gives you access to the wallet, gets you in, and then you're able to sign transactions with this thing. This thing is completely air gapped. Like I said, it's powered by battery. The USB-C cable on the bottom isn't data, it's power only. You can sign transactions with the camera, and there's a little SD card on the top. So, yeah, but I would recommend this. It's very easy to use.
And then your keys are stored on that device?
Yes. So your keys are stored on the device itself, and they're stored in a secure element. Yeah.
So if somebody were to basically steal that from you, is there any way that they can break it apart, get into the motherboard on it, and somehow access your keys?
Because the keys are stored on the secure element, it would take a very sophisticated attacker in order to gain access to the device. Even a sophisticated actor is going to need some time to gain access to it. So if your device goes missing, the way that you should really see it is that it bought you time to move your Bitcoin to another wallet of which you have sole custody of. So if you lose your wallet, or for whatever reason they take it away from you at the airport or at a border, it's not like, oh, they just took my Bitcoin. No, they have to get through the PIN, and it doesn't mean that they're going to actually get access to your Bitcoin. But you definitely do want to switch to another wallet. I would, at least.
Yeah.
If I knew that, the government had hands on my wallet and whatnot. Again, it's extremely difficult to, pull it out of the device. Like, that's what the secure elements are literally designed for, this sole purpose, right?
Yeah.
So, but no hardware wallet. I don't care who you are, what manufacturer no hardware wallet is completely safe to physical attacks. And all it takes is a sophisticated attacker. I would say a nation state, really. And these very sophisticated type of lasers and all that stuff to kind of extract the key out of the device. If your friend took it, or your neighbor or something, they're not going to they're not going to get the keys out. And by the way, to extract, it's incredibly expensive as well, right? So it's not as simple as like, oh, plugging it into a government computer and, you know, get the keys out. No, no, no. They have to pull the device apart, you know, get these lasers on the secure element. Like, it's an incredibly sophisticated type of process. It is not easy, and it's incredibly expensive, right? So yeah, so what it does is it protects you in the physical realm, in the sense that it buys you time. And more importantly, you know, most likely you're not going to run into that issue. But more importantly, it provides an air gap. So it allows you to store your Bitcoin keys in an air gap fashion, therefore in cold storage.
And what are your opinions on, I personally use just the metal sheet, right? And I got stamps, and I actually punch my keys into a metal plate, and then that's stored in a couple different locations. What are your opinions on that style versus a hardware? What's the ups and downs to it?
Yeah, I would say that you know, there's one thing, which is the actual device of which you use to sign your Bitcoin, and then the other thing is, which I think is what you're referring to, is the seed phrase storage kit. So you need to store your 12 to 24 words, because in case you lose this device, you use those 12 to 24 words as that's your actual Bitcoin. Like, that's the access to your funds, right?
Yeah.
So this hardware wallet is really just a way of kind of interacting with it, but you can lose this, and as long as you have the 12 to 24 word seed phrase, you can regain access to your Bitcoin. So what I would say is, most hardware wallets, they come with a little piece of paper, and they're like, okay, write your 12 to 24 words. But, you know, as Bitcoiners, we believe Bitcoin is generational wealth, and paper doesn't last for generations, right? So you want to properly secure generational wealth. And the way that you do that is, you know, by imprinting it on titanium or steel. You know, one of our sponsors, Stamp Seed, is a titanium seed phrase storage kit. So they, you know, they send you like a kit with a hammer and like letters and little like titanium sheets, and you literally like hammer in your seed phrase into
around here.
Yeah, you literally hammer your seed phrase into the plate itself, and I love it. I'm a user. I'm a big fan. And you know for a fact that if there's a fire or some crazy shit is going down, like, that seed phrase isn't going anywhere. You know, so yeah, that's what I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, a lot of people had the paper wallets, and then you realize when your house catches on fire, your paper wallet goes kapoof, and
Exactly.
there goes your Bitcoin. What are you expecting? Exactly. Go ahead. You got something to do?
No. I said exactly.
Oh, okay. I thought you said sorry. I thought somebody was texting you or something. So tell me a little bit about this cycle. And we just seen Bitcoin ran up, put in a new all-time high, first time before a halving. Talk on a little bit about where you see Bitcoin going. Like short term, I guess I would say like before the halving. Are you expecting us to rally up again because of the supply shock? I know I did a story 2 days ago on the danger zone, they call it. Every time right before halving, you know, we get this, you know, pre-halving rally, and then all of a sudden something in traditional markets causes, you know, a collapse, liquidity crisis of 2020. Are you expecting to see a bigger pullback, or are the ETFs, no matter kind of what happens in traditional markets, Bitcoin's become the safe haven? People are running to get rid of the dollar.
Yeah, maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down. I don't know. Like, no, I don't know. No one knows. Anyone that tells you otherwise is lying. I think, you know, I can tell you that's going up forever. I can't tell you what the time frame is for that. I can tell you that, you know, usually what tends to happen around the halving is it usually tends to cause like a supply shock, and they usually start to feel that price wise about 8 to 9 months after the halving. And then you tend to have a run up. But like I said, this situation is a little bit different because of the ETFs, because of the amount, the literally the record inflows, the amount of money that, bro, I mean, the ETFs are in the top 5 of all ETFs in the US. There's 3,100 ETFs. The Bitcoin ETF is number 3 and number 5, right? And there's a halving in less than, like, in about a month. I mean, like I said, like I can't tell you what the price is going to be tomorrow, but I mean, it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to kind of see where this is going. It's really not complicated. I think this is going to absolutely tear to the upside. And I think it's just a ticking time bomb. I think this is going to be a fucking rocket ship. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm incredibly, I mean, I don't think I've ever been in this situation in Bitcoin where I could have told you that with such confidence ever. Right.
Yep.
But this is such a interesting situation because of the ETFs, because of the halving, because of the success of Michael Saylor, because of the success of Nayib Bukele and El Salvador with their Bitcoin experiment. So you literally have all the planets and stars are aligning for this absolute tear that we might be experiencing in a couple months or so.
Does that cripple? I mean, I just can't wrap my head around being a logical market actor, just somebody who understands enough about their 401k to move money around from here and there and understands enough about inflation to go, yeah, I'm going to keep my money in, you know, not little baby Doge. We're not talking about crypto, but like AMC or GameStop or any of these other assets, Google, Amazon, when you can move your wealth into an asset that outperformed every single asset, I think, except for NVIDIA over the last 15 years. So it seems to me like everybody I know that's heard about Bitcoin wants to own Bitcoin. They all have these 401ks. Is this something that all of a sudden is almost like everybody's wanting to move everything out of all their 401ks, all their wealth, every asset that they've held stock in, and all of a sudden just Bitcoin starts engulfing the entire stock market?
Yeah, I mean, look, Bitcoin's the best performing asset. You know, your asset might not your particular asset, but I'm saying the asset that someone is hypothetically holding might outperform Bitcoin on the short term, but everything underperforms compared to Bitcoin in the long term. It is a superior asset. It's infinity divided by 21 million. This is a black hole. It's going to eat everything up. It is superior in every which way. You can, like gold is scarce. You could say that. But Bitcoin is absolutely scarce. There's a very big difference between the two. You don't know how much gold is in the ground. You have no idea. There could be trillions of dollars worth of gold floating in outer space, right?
In the ocean.
There isn't trillions of dollars of Bitcoin floating in outer space. There's 21 million Bitcoin, period, like full stop. And it's estimated that like between like 3 to 4 million are lost, right? So it's really like 17 million Bitcoin, right? So, and they haven't and the vast majority of that Bitcoin is in cold storage, meaning it doesn't move. Like I think it's like 1 or 2 million Bitcoin that are like actually liquid and being traded actively. So yeah, I mean, that's what I got to say about that. Like you can have your AMC stock and all that stuff, but like, Bitcoin is a superior asset. It just is. So, and again, like number go up is the best because I could tell you this and you'll think I'm crazy, but I promise you'll think of me in 4 years, whether, okay, like he was right or damn, I should have listened to him. Right. I've seen this many, many times. I've been here quite a long time. It's my 8th year and running close to 10. I can't fucking believe it. And I could tell you, man, like, you either get on the train or you risk getting left behind.
What do you say to people? I didn't ask you this question, but I've asked everybody, and I think you might be the first one that didn't have a shitcoin experience. When you got into crypto and first started hearing about Bitcoin, your cousin was telling you about it. Was there ever a point where you were buying anything but Bitcoin?
Absolutely. I think most most Bitcoiners go through kind of an altcoin phase. Now, I was spared a little bit just because I got into Bitcoin through mining. So I always had a deeper understanding of the actual infrastructure mining Bitcoin. So I always kind of knew that it was superior versus I think a lot of people get caught in the kind of altcoins. But yeah, I mean, I definitely played the altcoin casino. I think it's very attractive in the beginning just because of the volatility of these very small market caps. These things could fluctuate thousands of %, a year. And Bitcoin, you're not going to get that type of volatility. I mean, maybe you will, but it's a lot harder to move that type of move that much when the asset is worth $1 trillion and these small market caps are worth, a couple million, a couple billion, right? So the volatility is absolutely nuts, but the vast majority, I would say, no, all of them essentially of these altcoins, if you compare them in US dollar terms, yeah, maybe they previously break their all-time high, but if you compare them in satoshis, none of them have broken their all-time highs. In fact, they've always trended down towards Bitcoin. So if you hold them long enough, you're actually going to end up with more Bitcoin. And what I would say for 99% of people out there is, and this isn't my quote, by the way, but stay humble, stack sats. And then I always add my little part, which is stay solvent. And it's as simple as that. Bitcoin isn't a get rich quick scheme. It takes time. I would say it takes a minimum of 4 years to start really feeling the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts about 8 years. It takes about 8 years to really get wealthy. And the reason I say that is about 2 cycles or so.
Yeah.
And get wealthy compared to where you started, right? Wealth is completely relative, depending on where you are, what your lifestyle is, et cetera, et cetera. So it is the best savings technology. Your life will get cheaper. There is no housing crisis on a Bitcoin standard. Everything gets cheaper on a Bitcoin standard. So the house you want to buy, the car you want to buy, the food you're purchasing, even with all the inflation rate, if you've been living on a Bitcoin standard, that house is costing you less and less Bitcoin as time progresses, right? So it is completely liberating. And in a way, it provides a little bit of a I don't want to say safety net, but it provides peace of mind because, it's not a question of will I be able to afford this thing? It's a question of how long do I have to save in order to afford the thing that I want to buy?
How do you reach the people that think that Bitcoin's 70,000? I can't buy a Bitcoin. I can't afford it. So I'm going to go and buy little baby Doge or dog with a hat. And then I'm going to 100x. Then I'm going to buy all this Bitcoin with all my gains. How do you reach those people? Or is there you just have to let it play out? Let them learn like we learned.
I mean, if they're trying to, trade altcoins to get into Bitcoin, I'd say they're already orange pilled. They're just taking a little bit of risk. They're gambling a little bit. Hey, some of those gambles pay off sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I personally wouldn't do it, but they pay off. For most people, they don't pay off. So I would say, low time preference, take your income, put it into Bitcoin, and watch your wealth grow as time progresses, right? Like I said, it takes a minimum of 4 years. If you want kind of high time preference, type of stuff, you could take more risk on, which is what the altcoins are. They have more risk, but with more risks, you have that potential upside volatility. I can't emphasize the word enough, potential, because it's not a guaranteed thing, right? And again, I strongly advocate against trying to trade altcoins, trying to time the market, and trying to grow your Bitcoin stack. I've met more Bitcoiners in my 8 years of doing this that have lost money doing that. They ended up with less Bitcoin now than they could have had because they took those risks. I don't think I've ever met someone that has. I'm sure they exist. I personally haven't met someone that has continuously and successfully traded altcoins and continue to kind of maximize their stack by doing so.
Yeah, I don't know anybody. I know a couple of people that got really lucky on a few of them last bull run. I was doing live streams trading, and a guy came in and shared a coin called Shiba. I'm sure you heard of it. I was absolutely the first YouTuber. I mean, the thing didn't even have $1 million market cap. And then a couple of days later, I had made another video. I think the market cap was 10 million or something. And I tell everybody, I said, listen, if you guys go out, you guys want to buy shitcoins, you go out to the bar this weekend and you spend $250 with your buddies or your girlfriend, you go out and you don't go out this next weekend. You take that $250, you were going to already blow it. You always go out every weekend. It was gone anyways. That's your gambling money. Throw it at a shitcoin if you really feel like it, right? Like that's the only advice I can give you. And a couple of people took my advice, and one guy bought $2,000 worth of Shiba at like a, $100,000 market cap or $1 million market cap, and he made like $3 or $4 million on it, and he moved a majority of that wealth into Bitcoin. So it's that's the only, like, one out of 167,000 subscribers over on my main channel was that's the only person I've ever heard that story. So the odds are not in your favor, and I'm trying to reach as many of those people as I can to just say, hey, like, you're better off. Do you think there's, knowing that a vast majority of people are not going to listen to us or take our advice and they're going to learn the hard way, do you think there's like you should like a safe somewhat strategy? Like maybe you should put at the very least 75% of it into Bitcoin if you want to gamble with a little bit, because you're going to be a degenerate like we all were in the beginning. What is your advice on that? Is there any wiggle room that you would give people, because they're going to be degenerates anyways, to just so that they can see, like, hey, if I'm locking my Bitcoin, right, if I would have put it all into Bitcoin, I could see the rewards, but I've only put a little bit of it in. You know what I'm saying? Is there a way for people to like just judge and them to learn that valuable lesson, but also, own a chunk of Bitcoin at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, it's kind of like low time preference versus short time preference thinking. Like, this thing is estimated to, Bitcoin is estimated to compound growth like between 100 to 50%, 100 to 50% over the next 6 years or so until the 2030s. So like you could either kind of focus on mining as much fiat as possible and then just dumping it into Bitcoin as fast as possible.
That's what I say.
Or you could kind of focus a little bit of your time gambling. And that's not to say that, you might not win in gambling, but like I just mentioned, the vast majority of people that I've ever met that have tried to do that have ended up with less Bitcoin than they could have had. And they could have spent all that time and avoided all that stress and anxiety, just focusing on mining fiat, just kind of working hard and growing your fiat stack. So that's what I got to say about that.
And we're running up on that hour. Oh, no, we're not. Yeah, we are. We're going on about an hour now. So I want to be respectful of your time, but can you tell us a little bit about maybe you, your family members, your friends that you've seen get on Bitcoin and start adopting the Bitcoin standard? Personally, my life has become so much less stressful. The more I find myself focusing only on Bitcoin and not worrying about these other shit coins and worrying about what my portfolio is doing, because I got 10 different altcoins in it, the more I consolidate into Bitcoin, the less stressful my life becomes. Can you talk a little bit about what has happened in your life when you started adopting the Bitcoin standard from like a stress standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, your life completely changes because you start living on a deflationary standard, meaning like everything gets cheaper around you, versus if you live on an inflationary standard, everything gets more expensive around you, which is the vast majority of the world is living on an inflationary standard versus Bitcoiners living on a deflationary standard. That is an incredibly huge advantage. I can't emphasize that enough. Mm-hmm. And it starts to become more and more apparent as time progresses. Like the fact that you're on a Bitcoin standard gives you such a fucking edge. You cannot believe it. But most people are asleep to that. So yeah.
Yep. And how do you feel about people that, I know a lot of Americans right now are living paycheck to paycheck. They maybe have an extra $100 or $200 a month to save and invest in Bitcoin. What is your message to them? Do they go out and get a second job, like you said, and try to mine more fiat? And that's the only way to actually get out of this rat race that they're in?
Yeah. So I did it for years. Like it is what it is. You can't avoid hard work. Like can't avoid it, but you're not going to have to do it for long on a Bitcoin standard. You're not going to have to do it. You're not going to have to work until you die, which is what the alternative is under a fiat standard, which is absolutely atrocious. Like, at least there's that. But I said it in the beginning of the show, like, this isn't a get rich, oh, hopefully this, like, it'd be awesome if this was 2009, 2013, and we were getting into
Yeah.
the 2015 market, and there was like 100x, like, right there. Like, no, like, you're not gonna have that type of volatility on a short time scale anymore. It's not that it's not gonna happen, it's just gonna take a little bit longer. So
Yeah.
the benefit of that is that it gives you more time to stack. The downside of that is that it's gonna take a little bit more time.
We'll end it on this one. Going into the, let's just say 2025, 2026 timeframe, what are your highest expectations? You can just throw a ballpark number out there. Doesn't have to be accurate. Not going to hold you to it. What would make you the happiest if you were like, yes, Bitcoin hit that price? Like that's crushing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would be, I 100,000 minimum. I think a lot of people are expecting 100,000 by the end of the year, myself included. I would be very surprised. I mean, we hit 74K. So, with the ETF, like I was saying, with the supply shock, with the halving coming up, I would be surprised if we weren't at 100K by the end of the year. And then 2025, I mean, man, no one knows. Like, when this thing goes parabolic, Bitcoin tends to do the exact opposite of what everyone thinks. And what everyone kind of thinks, I think a lot of people have PTSD from like the last bull market, because I think a lot of people were let down. I think the returns weren't what a lot of people expected. So usually what I tend to see is Bitcoin kind of does the exact opposite of what everyone thinks. And the general kind of consensus that I get this time is this kind of diminishing returns theory, which it makes sense with the law of big numbers, right? But I would say that we might break that this cycle, right? We might break the diminishing returns theory. And if we break the diminishing returns theory, we're in completely uncharted territory. And, those price predictions from like Samson Mao and Adam Back don't sound so crazy, of like $1 million Bitcoin or $500,000 Bitcoin, or, in a short amount of time. Because I make no mistake, I think that we're going to get to $500,000 minimum by the end of the decade, like minimum. I would be extremely surprised if we weren't there. And that's not even that's like less than a 10x from here, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be, but what if we hit it this cycle? Like, what if we hit it next year? Like I said, it's only a 10x from here, right? Of course, you're now operating in the trillions of dollars in market cap. So those moves are, absolutely massive. But if you compare Bitcoin, the asset, compared to the rest of the world, it's absolutely tiny. It's microscopic, right? It's estimated to be like around $900 trillion in assets all around the world. And Bitcoin's only about 1 trillion. So, I mean, there's definitely room to grow for sure. It's just a question of if, but no one knows. Like I said, I would say conservative, I would be minimum 100K that we reach this cycle. That's what I would say.
Man, Nico, it's such an honor to have such a great conversation too, man. I greatly appreciate it. I really highly recommend that everybody, down in the description as well, are links to all of Nico's channels. And he also is I don't want to say an ambassador, but he works with a couple different projects over there. So he's doing a lot in the Bitcoin space. Make sure you guys swing over and follow Simply Bitcoin as well. And Nico, it's just an honor to have you on the show, man. And I'd love to get you back anytime you want to come on, man. If anytime, anything's happening in the market, you feel like jumping on the show, or just, you get bored of doing your own shows and you want to come over and shoot the shit, man, you're always welcome. And anybody else in your team that would like to come over and talk about Bitcoin, I'd love to continue to promote Simply Bitcoin and help you guys out any way I can, man.
Well, I appreciate the invite. Thank you so much for having me.
God bless you, my friend. Later. All right, folks, that is a wrap over here on the Ryan Matta Show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please consider swinging down there and following Nico. These guys are putting out fantastic content, and these are the type of people that you want to look to and you want to actually get advice from in this space. There's a lot of scammers, there are a lot of crooks, there's a lot of bad actors. These are the good people. I'm going to continue to try to bring on excellent Bitcoiners like Nico that are really going to help guide you guys through your crypto journey. If you guys are just getting into the space, it's a phenomenal space. I say this over and over again. There's no other space that, like Nico calls it, mining fiat, where I've said this, you guys have been following me for a long time, that, no other industry in the world where you can go get a second job working at McDonald's and work for 2 or 3 years. And if you put every penny of your second paycheck into an asset like Bitcoin, you will change the course of your life and your family's life forever. So if you have the ability, you don't have kids, and you're a single person, you have the ability to go get a second job, go out and get it. Now's the time. Now's the time to stack Bitcoin. You know, we're just getting started in this bull run. For the first time ever, Bitcoin's put in a new all-time high before halving. We're in uncharted territories, and I think, like Nico just said, it's going to go up forever. And you're buying yourself. My personal opinion: the amount of Bitcoin you buy today, this week, next month, will dictate the amount of freedom you have in the future. So please consider smashing that like button. We had a lot of people over here in the show. I think we got 332 watching over on X, which is pretty big numbers for us. So please consider smashing that thumbs up, share this, retweet it out, tell your friends about it. Come join us. We have a live show. We go live at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every morning. That's a Bitcoin only show. At nighttime, I'm open to interview anybody from any proof of stake or any blockchain that wants to, as long as they're not trying to shill it as the decentralized holy grail. And we know nothing's really decentralized in this space besides Bitcoin, 100% at its core level. But there's a lot of great crypto products out there that are doing a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of potential for people to make investments. As long as you guys just understand that those are a company and there's an issuer of that currency, where Bitcoin has no issuer, which eliminates all your counterparty risk. Go smash that like button, guys. God bless you guys. God bless America. God bless Donald Trump. We'll catch you guys in the next one. I also do a show on LFA TV too as well at 2 p.m. So if you guys want to go down the political rabbit hole and hear about all these wild conspiracy theories and how bad our country really is and the shape that it's in, come join us over there on LFA TV exclusively on Rumble. God bless you guys. Catch you guys in the next one.